At some point you may wish to join a band or an orchestra, and sometimes that may require an audition, and an audition requires a piece to play. Sometimes you might be able to bring something of your own. Sometimes, and especially the case of an orchestra, they will give you a piece of music, and typically that's an extract from an established piece of music, maybe something that the orchestras are going to play. So the point of this video is to just share some of the tips and tricks for going about preparing for this audition piece. The piece that I have here is Alleluia from Mozart's Exsultate, jubilate, and a user posted this to the clarinet subreddit asking for some advice on how to go about practicing this piece for an audition. So the community replied, and there's some really good suggestions there, so I collated a few of those, added some of my own, and put together this little collection of tips and tricks for going about practicing this piece. So being the impulsive person that I am, I'd probably just play the piece straight off. I see here I have no title, there is no tempo marking. In fact, even the time signature has been cropped off. So sight reading rules apply. You got to try and find out first what's your time signature. It doesn't have it, but you can tell it's in 2/4. Lots of semiquavers. So you want to get your semiquaver subdivision going. 1 eander, 2 eander, 1 eander, 2 eander. What's our key signature? It pairs, it's G major. It's got an F sharp in the key signature. Again, it's been completely cropped off from the beginning of the piece because someone's just extracted this from the original material. And then we just give it a go. Who cares about dynamics? Let's just play it. Some giant res. Oh, was that a cue? No, it looks like notes. Slipped up to the end there. Okay, so I just had a bit of a play. Seems cool. It's nice and classical. Very smooth. Yeah, it's a nice little piece to play. So now that we've had some fun, we've made some noise, we've got some keys under our fingers, it's time to find out what this piece is really all about. So we have to find the original material. So the extract that I have has no title, it has no composer, it has no speed. There's a lot we don't know about this. So we're pretty much guessing at this point. So thankfully, Alleluia from Mozart's Exsultate, jubilate is on YouTube. There are a couple of versions. One of them is sung by a boy soprano, one of them is sung by a lady soprano. And that's suddenly the first thing you realize about this piece. Oh my gosh, this is an orchestra piece and there are vocals. There is a vocalist. So you listen to the piece, you get an idea of the style, it's a big orchestral piece. And the other thing you notice very quickly, it's motoring. Taka 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 ta, 1 eander, 2 eander, 1 eander, 2 eander. So suddenly we realize that this is going to take a bit of a practice on our part in order to ramp up that tempo. But now that we know a little bit clearer what is expected of us in order to pull off a successful audition. Okay, now it's time to practice this piece. This piece is fast. There's no way we're just going to throw ourselves at it, so we have to practice it slowly. Now, I'm a huge fan of not using a metronome right off the bat. We have to create our own pulse. Taka 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 ta. We have to feel the semiquavers. We have to feel this pulse, right? So the metronome it puts us under unnecessary pressure. When the music gets faster, sure, we can get the rhythm going again, but when it gets hard, we want to be able to pull it back, and we don't want a metronome pushing us along. Okay, so we're creating our own pulse. Taka 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 da. Now, later on, the metronome will be used to help try and force us so that we know that when we're accidentally speeding up and we're accidentally slowing down. But for the time being, we just want to be able to just sense a pulse. And away away we go. So again, we're having fun with the music, we're just creating beats, and when it gets hard, we slow down. So we don't have to use a metronome at this point. Now that we've had a play and we've established our own sense of pulse and groove in this piece, it's time to start getting a little bit serious about drilling into the hard parts. The first thing to do is to find out what patterns we've got, and we are very safely in G major. You're going to hear a lot of this. But it goes up to an A, so sometimes they're nice to go up to, just a bit beyond the 2 octaves. Because that's the limit of this piece. There's a few C sharps in there, but don't let those detract from the fact that we're very much in G major. There's probably some arpeggios in there somewhere. And another exercise that I quite like to do is the scales in thirds. So look that one up. So what we've established here is the core fingering going on in this piece. So if your fingers are starting to take a tumble, it's because they're not really used to those G major patterns. So you want to just get your fingers used to the little scalic motions. Okay, we're just very much in those G major notes. So that's a starting point. Alright, so you've tried to play your G major scale and it's not quite coming out even. Your fingers hate you. They just can't seem to want to find a nice smooth pattern. How do we solve this? And the answer is there's a few little tricks we can do. We can swing it. We can reverse swing. And we can do something like when we're playing the piece, we can linger on certain notes. So let's say I'm playing this passage in the middle. And I just hate the B for some reason. For whatever reason, I hit that B. And my fingers tumble through the keys. What can I do? Sometimes just holding that note's useful. So often there's that little note that your fingers just kind of flick through. Just let your fingers linger on that note for a bit, play it as a tenuto, and eventually your fingers will get the idea. Right, so just to take in that little passage in a swing version. What we're trying to do here is just get the fingers used to actually spending some time on the keys, because often the technical difficulties and the challenge of the technique is just making sure everything's on the keys even, and generally it's not because a finger stays on it too long, it's generally because they're not there long enough. So often by doing a swing and a backward swing, you're just giving a little bit of time on those keys. So we're just, at this point, we're not even really playing Exsultate, jubilate. We're just playing some G major exercises, getting the fingers used to going through all those patterns. So one of the pieces of advice that I quite liked on that Reddit reply was to linger on each of the individual beats, the first semiquaver of each of those beats, just to try and control the semiquaver movement so your fingers aren't just flying away. So in a way, it's an extension of the lingering on an individual note that your fingers hate. This one's more for just controlling pulse to make sure you're not accidentally flying off a bit too fast. So that's a good way of just establishing a sense of flow and just making sure you're not kind of getting ahead of yourself. We can also mix up the articulation. So there's a lot of slurs here, but again, you want to almost take yourself out of the context of playing Exsultate, jubilate and get back to our G major exercises. So let's do some mixed articulation. So we can do ta, 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 ta. Maybe we can go da 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 da. So again, it's just other ways of trying to make sure that our technique is a little bit sound. We're not just trying to play the piece from beginning to end. We're just getting the fingers used to doing what they need to do. So a tip about this particular piece, there are some opportunities for some technical shortcuts. So clarinet has this interesting quirk that we can keep our right hand down, and as we're playing the throat notes, the sound doesn't change much. So if I play A, G, and F sharp, you can hear that the sound really isn't changing much. So there is a bar in this piece where we're going from the B and C, we're getting down into those throat notes, A, G. And I can actually keep my right hand down. It's not going to affect the sound much. Personally, I'd probably lift it a little bit because I can keep my fingers quite close to the keys. But often, if you are still struggling with keeping your fingers really close to the keys, this is probably a great opportunity to be so close to the keys, you're actually down. Okay, so obviously I'm not a huge fan of metronomes, but they do have their place. So if I was to play this as 126, let's see what we can do. There's a lot of pressure. Okay, so what have I realized here? I really wanted to push those crotchets. The semiquavers for me, they were reasonably safe. I didn't want to play them any faster than that because they're pretty fast, but you could just tell those crotchets, I really wanted to push them. And the metronome was warning me, okay, you probably want to just watch out for those ones. Okay, so let's keep on going. Yikes. Okay, so there is a bar there that I just need to practice because I can't play at that speed yet. So that's good. Sometimes it's nice to know that, okay, that bar right there at the end there is going to require a bit of practice. And therefore, I'll have to go through those drills as identified earlier. Maybe play a bit of a swing. Just to get the fingers used to going through that pattern, then gradually pulsing out the notes a little bit. Okay, I really don't like that B. So all those little tricks established earlier or identified earlier, this is a good opportunity to just take those bars that you realize that with the pressure of the metronome, you go, yep, that bar is just going to need some more work. Decorations. Trills and grace notes, they sound fantastic, but sometimes they make the music look really, really confusing. And remember, they are just decorations. They are decorating the notes that they are on. So if you get confused about the rhythm, just strip them away for a moment. And in this piece, we got a couple. So a tip about these decorations, the trill, that's decorating the note that's above, obviously. And the grace notes are decorating the note that it's going towards. So in this case, so sometimes it's good to treat these independently. So you're practicing this piece. Let's take away the trill for a moment and just do the grace note. Now bear in mind, we don't want to make the grace note so long it sounds like semiquavers. Da, 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 da. It's got to have that grace note quality. Dum, ba, da, da. Okay, so now let's do the trill. Okay, now with trills, you're under no obligation to put as many notes as you possibly can in the space. We are decorating this E. So we're going from E to F sharp. So just remember, we've got to finish on an E. We're not playing an F sharp here, we're decorating the E. And don't also feel that you have to play the trill right up to the grace notes. We can just get almost like a mordant effect, maybe a couple more extra notes. And then just let the E settle, then play the grace note. So sure, the more you can get in there, the nicer it's going to sound, but you're under no obligation to really push it to its limit. It'll sound quite nice with just a few. You may have heard of the expression perfect practice makes perfect, and this piece is a good example of it. What we're trying to do is minimize the possibility of mistakes. We're trying to make sure that our fingers do not develop a memory for going to the wrong place, so by going slow, we try and make sure we do absolutely no fingerings wrong, or at least make them as few as possible, and then we just gradually weed them all out, and then we get the flow going, and then we get our metronome, and then away we go. So really, what we're trying to do is optimize our time here. We're trying to just make sure that our fingers are always getting it right, and therefore our fingers don't get this crazy habit of just going to the wrong places. So that is the goal here. So my last piece of advice is a bit of a strange one. At some point you just have to know when to walk away. And I don't say walk away from the piece and go, I don't want to do this audition. It's actually more just from a practice point of view. Your fingers are going to fatigue, your mouth is going to fatigue, your embouchure is just going to be kaput. At some point it actually is diminishing returns. You're going to start playing more and more mistakes. So generally, if you've been playing this piece for, gosh, like 20 minutes and it's all starting to unravel, just take a break. When you hear about someone, I play 3 hours a day, yikes, I could never imagine doing that. That 3 hours isn't done in one whole stint, right? This isn't a marathon effort. That's a whole lot of little practices. So there will be a diminishing return. At some point, just walk away, come back to it, and it'll just work a lot better. And that is the end. So hopefully there was some advice there that you find useful and can take away and use in your own practices. This piece, sure, 126 is pretty fast, but at a slower speed, it's a good fun piece to play. So if you ever get the chance to find some Mozart Alleluia from Exsultate, jubilate, give it a go. It's a good way of practicing your G major scales.